Picture this, a cold, dark night and an eerily silent 999 call received. The night was deep, the moon veiled by a blanket of clouds, the streets bathed in an eerie glow from the flickering streetlights. It was during one of those late-night shifts when the world seemed to hold its breath and time seemed to slow down. That's when the call came in. The line was open, but silence echoed on the other end. A chill ran down my spine. Silent calls aren't uncommon, but something about this one felt different. It was not just the absence of sound, it was the presence of an unsettling quiet. The kind of silence that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. The kind of silence that makes you question if you're truly alone. In the face of this haunting quiet, I made a decision to investigate, to trace the origin of this call and see if someone was in need of help. With the address relayed from the dispatch, I set off into the night, steering my patrol car towards a block of flats in the heart of the city. As I approached, the building loomed ominously in the distance, appearing more like a shadowy fortress than a residential block. The lights were off in most of the flats, the inhabitants likely lost in their dreams, unaware of the unsettling call that led me to their doorstep. Stepping out of the car, I was immediately hit by a wave of unease. The atmosphere was heavy, as if the air itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The silence of the night was replaced by the deafening quiet of the building, the kind of quiet that makes every sound seem amplified. The wind whistled through the narrow alleyways, rustling the leaves and creating shifting shadows that played tricks on the eye. A stray cat scampered away at my approach, its eyes glowing in the dim light. The building seemed to swallow up the sounds of the city, leaving behind an eerie silence. The atmosphere was not just eerie, it was downright chilling, but I pressed on. The block of flats stood in front of me, quiet and menacing. An imposing structure, it was a silent sentinel in the eerie stillness of the night. As I ventured into the building, the eeriness was palpable. The lights, once vibrant and full of life, flickered intermittently, casting long, ominous shadows that danced along the grimy walls. It was as if the very building was alive, pulsating with an energy that was both chilling and captivating. Despite the late hour, a shivering coldness permeated the air, a coldness that bore into my bones. It seemed to seep out from the walls themselves, a ghastly chill that was unnatural, almost otherworldly. Every step I took echoed through the empty corridors, the silence amplifying the sound, turning it into a haunting melody of solitude. And then, the blood. It was unexpected, a splash of crimson on the otherwise drab-grey concrete. It was fresh, a stark contrast to the decay that surrounded it. The sight was jarring, a gruesome tableau that hinted at the horrors that had transpired within these walls. But it was the smell that truly heralded the grim reality of my situation. It was a smell I knew all too well, a smell that no amount of training or experience could ever prepare you for, the smell of death. It was a sickly, cloying scent, a miasma of decay that filled the air, a grim testament to the finality of life. As I stood there, the flickering lights casting an eerie glow on the blood-stained floor, the smell of death heavy in the air, I couldn't shake off the feeling of dread that had taken hold of me. The block of flats, once a bustling hub of life, had turned into a grim mausoleum, a chilling reminder of the fragility of existence. The smell of death was in the air, a grim harbinger of what was to come. Suddenly my radio went dead, cutting me off from the outside world. The lifeline to my colleagues, my backup, my reassurance, it had abruptly left me. One moment, the static buzz of the radio was a comforting background hum. The next, an eerie silence had fallen, leaving only the unsettling sounds of the building to fill my ears. The atmosphere seemed to shift, growing heavier. I could feel the walls of the building closing in, the shadows growing darker, the silence more deafening. I was alone, isolated in this ominous structure with a dead radio as my only companion. I attempted to restart it, to bring back that reassuring crackle of life, but it remained silent, as though the building itself had swallowed the signal. And then the sound started, a distant, indistinct noise like a low moan, a shuffling, as if something was moving in the darkness. The building seemed to come alive, an orchestra of unsettling sounds playing a symphony of dread. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing the rhythm of the sounds around me, but then a sense of determination washed over me. I was a police officer, sworn to protect and serve. Even in the face of fear, it was my duty to investigate, to confront the unknown. The dead radio, the ominous sounds, the oppressive atmosphere, they were obstacles to overcome, challenges to face. I pressed on, the sounds growing louder, more intense. The moaning, the shuffling, they seemed to be coming from all directions, surrounding me, but I wouldn't let fear paralyze me. I moved forward, each step echoing in the silent corridors. The building seemed to breathe, the sounds its heartbeat. The dead radio in my hand, a cold reminder of my isolation. Yet I wasn't entirely alone. The unsettling sounds were my companions, a chilling symphony playing just for me. I was alone, the ominous sounds my only company. And then in the darkness I saw it. A shape, barely discernible, lurking in the shadowy depths of the flat. As a police officer, I'd been trained to handle all sorts of situations, but nothing could prepare me for what I was about to face. Every instinct told me to turn tail and run, to escape from the foreboding darkness that seemed to swallow all light and hope. Yet duty bound me, tethering me to the spot. I steeled myself and ventured further into the abyss, the foul smell of death growing stronger, the eerie silence growing louder. The shape in the darkness moved, a subtle shift that sent a chill running down my spine. It was no ordinary burglar or runaway criminal I was dealing with. This was something different, something otherworldly. I felt a cold dread seep into my bones, a fear so profound it threatened to consume me. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears, a steady drum that seemed to echo in the silent flat. I held my breath, straining to hear any sound that would give away the entity's position, but all I could hear was the deafening silence, a silence that seemed to have a life of its own, wrapping around me like a shroud. I reached out, my hands shaking, and the shape moved again. This time, however, it was more pronounced, more deliberate. It was coming towards me. A low growl echoed through the flat, bouncing off the walls and invading my senses.